issues aren't normal. Some research shows that every year after the age of 35, women lose 2% of their pelvic floor muscle strength with aging and hormones. If at 35 we're leaking, what will it be like at 65? I know that's a wowzer of an intro, but I think it's important that we talk about rebuilding your pelvic floor health, especially after having babies. You're listening to the Renewed Mama podcast. I'm Kimberly Mutar, and I help mamas like you stay renewed. Renewed in your thoughts that are on repeat while you wash dishes or fold laundry. Renewed in the words you say to yourself and to your children when it's the best day ever and when it spirals into chaos and temper tantrums. Renewed in how you respond so that you keep showing up as the mama you want to be. Wait, mama, there is more of us to renew than just our thoughts, our words, and responses. In order to renew all of us as moms, we need to focus on our health and our home environment. So today we are talking about rebuilding your pelvic floor health. Muscles in your pelvic region, known as your pelvic floor, help to support your organs, your uterus, bladder, and rectum. These muscles support your back, spine, and your breathing. They help with peeing, pooing, and intimacy. My special guest is Christina Walsh. She is a published researcher, a physical therapist, and the co-founder of Tighten Your Tinkler. Christina is a mom to two and loves music festivals and all the excitement that New Orleans has to offer. Christina is amazing. I know that you will find this episode super helpful. Let's understand how to rebuild your pelvic floor health. Welcome, Christina, to the Renewed Mama podcast. I'm so glad that we are having this conversation today about our pelvic floor health. You know, it wasn't until I had baby number 3 that I clued in how important, how significant our pelvic floor health is, and that I needed to strengthen my pelvic floor muscles. How is it that we're not following up on our pelvic floor health after delivering babies, having C-sections, just like we are doing regular checkups for the newborn baby?
Absolutely. And I love that you chose to share that part of your story, because that is often the way it goes. So many women who we've worked with, their story goes very much like that. You know, maybe after baby number 1, I had just kind of some mild annoying tightness in my back or my hips, but I thought, you know, whatever. And then after baby number 2, maybe I had a few leaks during the pregnancy, but that they just went away. And then after baby, you know, and it's obviously the nuances are all very different. We'll talk more about the details of what this story can look like, but it is not uncommon for, you know, that cumulative strain on the body to eventually show up as one symptom or another. And, you know, the main message I want all mamas listening to know is that all the stuff we talk about is something you don't have to just live with. And so that is the great news.
Let's talk about the main problems or concerns that we can develop in regards to our pelvic floor health, and share with us what each one of those are and what we might feel or experience, and then how can we strengthen or heal those pelvic floor muscles.
Yes, absolutely. And I want all women to know you are not alone in these issues. We're going to break down, this can show up in so many different ways. And the beautiful piece is that all these things that we're about to talk about are all connected. They share a common root cause of just kind of core and pelvic floor dysfunction. So, you know, while we're going to go into all these little nuances of things you may or may not be experiencing, chances are you might check a few of these boxes, or maybe some will check more than others, but they are all connected. So that means they can all be remedied at once when you kind of get to that root cause of addressing, like you said, that pelvic floor weakness, and for some women, tightness, and that core comes right along with that. So when you restore that function at your center of gravity, all of these little things we're about to talk about get better. And it's like that beautiful approach of holistic health where you take slow, gentle steps in the right direction and you start to notice, wait, okay, this is getting better now too, and this is getting better now too. And these issues are so common. Over 52 million women in this country alone are dealing with these issues. So no, they're not the first thing you talk about when you see your mom friend at the park or get that elusive just the two of you dinner date, because it's personal. But
Right.
please know, you can't see this stuff when you look at other moms when you're out and about. So it's easy to think, I'm the only one, and these are the comments that get put under our YouTube teachings. It's like, I am in tears right now because I thought I was the only one. So you are not alone. No matter what array of the stuff we're about to talk about you may be dealing with, maybe some of it doesn't bother you, and that's okay. But maybe some of it does. And it's up to each woman to discern when is enough enough. If once it's bothering you enough to impact how you're showing up as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, then as a worker, sometimes this affects your work. That's when most women say, okay, this isn't okay anymore. And so what is that array? How can this look in your body? And it is a pretty wide spectrum. So it can be everything from the bladder leaks is the most common one every woman thinks about when we hear pelvic floor, right? Like pee when you laugh, cough, sneeze, jump, or those urgency leaks, like gotta go, oh, gotta go now. Another thing is peeing more than 10 times a day. So urinary frequency. I promise, I know what you're all thinking, but I drink so much water.
Right.
Yes. But there is no such thing as a small bladder. A bladder holds 1.5 to 2 cups of urine during the day and up to 4 at night when the pelvic floor is functioning well. So the good news is if you're peeing 20 times a day, like so many of the women who come work with us, you don't have to live like that forever. If it's interrupting your time at the beach with your kids, if it's pulling you out of work meetings, if it's wrecking your summer vacation, it doesn't have to be your forever normal. So all of those things, those are like the first things most women think about.
I really try to be intentional with how I take care of my body. And I think the choices that I make today are going to affect someday. I want to run and play with my own grandchildren or jump on the trampoline with my own grandchildren. So I've been having this thought of like, okay, if there is a pee when you sneeze or you can't really jump on the trampoline, now when you are 30, 40, what is it going to be like when you are 60, 70? It is all connected. If I can do one thing or two things now to strengthen that pelvic floor, I'm addressing all of those concerns, right? Which is really hopeful.
Yes, and that is why we love to take a more kind of zoomed out holistic approach to it, this being your whole core, because it is that beautiful gift of an upward spiral when we address things at the root cause, right? It is like, oh, wow, all of it's getting better. So other things that are very much a part of this same picture are waking up at night to pee. Another one that women have so deeply accepted as just the way it is that I don't think we've yet had a single woman come work with us to solve that problem because they deeply believe it's not possible to fix it. But inevitably, within 2 weeks of working with us, women come back and say, wait a minute, I didn't know I was actually going to be able to sleep through the night again. They joined because of the leaks but absolutely, yes, that can be taken care of and eliminated. So as you're hearing this stuff, if you're dealing with some of these things, now is not the time to beat yourself up and say, gosh, I mean, it is heavy to walk around with this sort of stuff going wrong and I know from personal experience, I came upon this work, as you know, because it's a personal journey for me, and my business partner, Jen, we had no intentions of having this business or being where we are, but life gives us gifts in many forms. And this became our calling once it became a personal recovery for both of us in different ways, and so if you're hearing all this, you may feel broken in your body. You may feel, my body was made to do this. What is wrong? And the good news is it doesn't have to be like this forever, and you are not broken, and it is not too late to get better. And so more pieces of this puzzle, which you might have like little light bulb moments as we talk about these nuances, more pieces of this puzzle can be that feeling of, most women don't say pain, because we're stoic. We're the head of the
Mm,
household, right? We got to just power through anyway. So nobody says my back hurts. But if
mm,
you dig a little deeper, oh yeah, I always have to stretch my back, or like sometimes my hip like wakes me up in the middle of the night because it's just so tight. Those are all a part of this same picture, and
mm,
things you don't have to live with forever. Issues like that feeling of heaviness or pressure down below, or that feeling of a bulge, which is a very awful feeling I can speak to personally. It makes you, it's like carrying a weight around all the time. Like, what is
mm,
wrong with my body when you're constantly having that feeling? It's absolutely terrible. That is all a part of this picture. Another thing is issues with intimacy. If you are having pain or swelling during or after,
mm,
not something you have to live with. And that is a big deal, as we all know, because that's our connection with our life partner. And
mhm.
and that is so important to have that restored and healed. So all these things are part of this picture.
Right. I'm thinking of a few others. Like, what about UTIs, urinary tract
Yes.
infections?
Yes, and
What else?
I love that you brought that up, because that is something, another thing that like many women have been told is a kind of quote unquote a separate issue. And
Mm,
very often it's not. It is often because I love the way my partner Jen gives a visual to explain this one. So it's like the bladder, the thing that's holding all the organs in place in your pelvis is all soft tissue. There's no bone that like holds your bladder in place or
right.
holds your rectum or your uterus up. And once all that stuff has been stretched and through all the normal processes of pregnancy and birth, even without a traumatic birth, it takes a toll on our bodies. And the older we're
Right.
having kids, that also matters. We feel like I mean, I had two sunny side up deliveries with that, head to the bed. So all of
Right.
those things affect how your tissue experiences pregnancy and birth. And so often though, those organs in your pelvis don't kind of go back to their original home. So the bladder, in this case of chronic UTIs, very most often what has happened, the bladder has kind of fallen down from its home, its
Okay.
original home in your pelvis, and that causes a kink in the hose. So that little tube that lets the pee from the bladder out of your body, if you imagine the bladder's kind of sitting on it, it
Right.
can kind of cause a little fold in it. And you know what happens with a garden hose? If you
Yeah.
kink it, no water's coming out, or it's not going to come out all the way. So what often happens is there's that kink in the hose because the bladder has kind of pressed down on the tube the pee comes out of,
Mm-hmm.
and or the pelvic floor in its attempt to support you has actually become over tight in certain places or hypertonic. And that's your body trying to help you, but it's not a
Mm,
healthy state for your pelvic floor either. So either of those two things can be happening and stopping you from fully emptying your bladder. When urine is left in the bladder, it leads you to chronic and recurrent urinary tract infections. So it's just incredible. And then, modern medicine will tell you just get on antibiotics. And then
right.
many women are told this is just going to get worse. Just get used to it. There's no hope for you. And the truth is there is. You don't
Mm,
have to live with that either. Very most often, it's one of those issues that can be solved by a simple toileting position and better up and in support from those muscles under there. So it's
mm.
really incredible the problems that can be solved through strength and stretching.
Yes, I'm enjoying this so much. I was unfamiliar of rectal prolapse. I know that that's part of your story. So explain that.
That's another one. So much like when the bladder kind of falls out of place or falls down a little bit, the
Okay.
medical term for that is prolapse. That is a term that's very scary for many women, and I understand why. But many of us have a little bit of that, whether we know it or not, because
Mm,
again, that soft tissue that kind of holds the organs in the pelvis in place has been stretched, and maybe it didn't
right.
quite come back into its place that it was before kids. And so that's kind of what's happening here with you can have prolapse or little falling downward of the uterus, kind of into pressing down into the vaginal canal. You can also have a little falling down or falling out of place of the rectum.
Mm-hmm.
So, because of those sunny side up deliveries that I had, much more pressure during that birth went through the backside of the pelvic bowl, you could say, pressed up
Okay.
against the rectum for me. So that leads to that feeling of pressure and heaviness, trouble with completely emptying the bowel because the soft tissue that used to guide and support that doesn't have the same positioning that it did
Uh-huh.
before. Yeah, and all of that is controlled by the pelvic floor. And I think the pelvic floor gets a bad rap as being some kind of special magical thing, and it's just muscle. It's like a sling of muscle that holds your guts in, and that is not, you know, glamorous, but
Right.
when it's it surely matters for a lot of functions of our body that it's working well.
Right, exactly. You are explaining it so clearly that makes it just so easy to understand.
I should say this right now. If you are identifying with some of this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I think that might be me, we have so much teaching available because it is our mission to make sure women have access to this information. We always say we have teachings on all the stuff you're scared to Google. We're on YouTube,
Right.
we're on Instagram. So it is a huge part of our mission to take the fear out of this because we know from personal experience how scary it can be. So you can find so much in-depth teaching if you're like, gosh, okay, I really liked what she was saying there. I need more information about that. Guarantee you we've got a deep dive teaching on all of this
Right.
available and very accessible. So I think that is really the biggest kind of issues that most women are dealing with, all that stuff we talked about. And again, you probably aren't going to identify with all of them, but a couple of them you'll think, oh, wait, yep, that's definitely me. And
Yes.
and then so yeah, there are so many things that you can begin doing. And again, Jen and I always take that kind of zoomed out holistic approach to how we're going to heal from this. And so there are so many things even before you had children that have affected your pelvic floor health,
Mm.
which I find fascinating because this is stuff you're not going to hear anywhere else, but
Yeah,
it
tell
might
us.
really resonate in your personal story. You know, what athletics you might have pursued in adolescence can absolutely impact pelvic floor health. There's research that more than a majority of teenage cheerleaders have pelvic floor issues. For
Mm.
instance, and this is one example, but things like living with chronic constipation or chronic asthma or coughing leads to a lifetime of downward pressure on that pelvic floor. So if you have a connective tissue disorder where like your connective tissue is very loose, you're a hypermobile sort of build, that can lead to being predisposed to have some of these issues later. So also a life of chronic stress or anxiety or a history of any trauma, especially directly to the pelvis,
Mm.
be that sexual trauma or birth trauma, all of that puts you at statistically at greater risk to have some of this at some point in your life. So at the very, what I hope you're hearing is validation, because this is a complex story for our bodies, right? Our bodies tell the story of our whole life, not just
Right.
a little tiny picture of it. So the guidance that we like to give to start turning the tables in the right direction with these issues is very holistic. It's so many simple things you can choose to do and not do right away, even before you get to the pelvic floor strengthening piece. You
Mm.
want to
Okay.
make sure first you are hydrating and having good amounts of fiber. And right,
Mm.
that's going to impact your health so positively in so many ways. But what maybe is not known all the time is that that's a great way to take care of your pelvic floor.
Right.
Because, right, hydrated tissue is healthier tissue. And when we keep our poops, our stool, not too hard and not too soft, that decreases that downward pressure from straining to get it out. And along
Right.
those lines, make sure you've got a squatty potty, a toileting stool of some kind. So you're passing your bladder and your bowel in a more ergonomic position. It's
Yeah,
going
explain that to us, Christina, because I only just learned of that like last night.
it
A
is
squatty potty. I was like, what's a squatty potty?
so simple. I mean, that's why I love it. And this stuff, it adds up because think how many times a day we're using the bathroom,
Right.
right? And so it's that compound effect of small choices over time add up to major change. So this using a squatty potty is so simple. So if you think about Eastern cultures, if you've ever traveled anywhere like that, you know that emptying your bowel and bladder like in a hole in the ground in a
Right.
deep squat position. And it actually turns out that that deep squat position puts your body up for better success and more peaceful and complete passage of both
Mm.
bladder and bowel. So instead of having to squat over a hole, we simply take a stool that raises your feet up, puts your knees above your hip height, and that helps to replicate that deep squat position which helps you more peacefully and completely empty bladder and bowel. I mean, it's like so cool, so simple, accessible. And, some women are like, but it's like a medical device. I don't want that in my guest bathroom. No, they make pretty ones. You can get a teak wood or a bamboo.
Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be ugly.
Right, right. Well, while we're on that topic, I want to talk about releasing our pee because we often, at least as moms, think that, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later about Kegels, but that we should push the pee out.
Oh,
But
right. To
that's
save a
not the
few
case, right?
seconds. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, sometimes we're in a rush.
Yes, and right. I mean, I've been there. The toddler's banging on the door. Somebody
Right,
just sounds like you just heard a crash in the next room, or
right.
you know, or you're late to a meeting. It's for
Yes,
some of us, we're healthcare providers and or teachers, and we don't have that much time to go to the bathroom.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? So it goes back to what we we're talking about, completely emptying. When we're pushing to try to get the pee out faster, it actually causes some to be left in the bladder. So it stops you from completely passing all the urine,
Mm,
which means you're just going to have to go back and visit the bathroom again sooner. And it makes you more likely to deal with leaks because there's pee left in that bladder. It's going to
right.
make you more likely to have to get up at night to pee. And it's going to increase your chances of those UTIs. So we want to let all the pee out of the bladder, and it should be a peaceful affair. It should be fully relaxing that muscle and not like,
Right. Yes. Well, and that's a great thing to teach our children. I mean, when you
yes.
get the squatty potty, you're helping them, right? Be in that right position. Yeah, we can train our children now on the proper way to pee and to poo peacefully.
Absolutely. Right. And it's amazing that will pay dividends in their health moving forward. And it's so simple. And I love that. So there are so many other things you can begin doing. Your pelvic floor is not friendly with compressive garments around your waist.
Mm,
So I, I understand we want to look smooth in that nice dress for that event or whatever it is. But even something as simple as maybe underwear or pants that were the right size before you had kids, but our bodies have changed. Maybe they're not quite the right size anymore.
right.
Anything that's cinching around your middle, that pressure has to go somewhere, right? And it's going to go down. So now some women are like, no, not my Lululemon leggings. I can't live without them. Don't
Right.
panic. Your body will let you know. So much of this is about tuning in and listening to what your own body is telling you. So if you notice swelling or in your abdomen, lower abdomen, or increased feelings of pressure or heaviness, or increased discomfort in your back or hips, either during or after wearing something that you're like, ooh, maybe this is a little too tight. That is your
Right.
body saying, ooh, please size up. This is not good
Yes.
for me right now.
Right.
And you want to make sure also to be gingerly and wary with high impact exercise.
Mm,
That is not to say you shouldn't do it. Again, every woman and every body is different. One thing I will say is I specifically caution about being wary about high impact exercise, especially for the duration of any breastfeeding you might be doing,
mm,
because our bodies stay a little more loose hormonally as far as the things that support our joints. So you're more likely to injure that soft tissue, either the pelvic floor or throw out a hip or throw out your back or your knee, if you're choosing to do that high impact activity while breastfeeding, but really through the duration of recovering from having kids. Just tune into your body. If any of those issues that we talked about as being related to pelvic floor and core dysfunction are increasing during or after that activity, it's your body's not saying never. It's saying, please, not yet. I need
right.
more strength first, please. I'm not ready.
Yes, there's so much education that can go around that because I remember being like, yes, I just want to get my body back and like jumping into the exercise and not having any knowledge as to how to ease into it.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally. And I totally understand that want to get back to where we were. But our bodies need that grace and time for healing, and some more than others. Like, depending on the
right,
birth experience you had, how many times you've been pregnant,
right. Yeah.
and all those factors come into play. So it's so much of the art of just listening to our body and honoring where it is and what it's asking for is the best way to take care of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then,
Tell us more.
well, and so I think the other thing is making sure, you know, we want every woman to find a path to healing. If you are living with this stuff, we want everyone to find a path to healing that feels right for you. There are options out there. The program that Jen and I have come up with and that we have put out into the world online because our in-person clients begged us to, basically is why we have this business,
Right.
is one option. You can go to in-person therapy for this sort of thing, but we are really proud and honored to offer an alternative to that because many in-person therapists are doing internal work that is actually painful and invasive.
Mm.
And that requires getting to an appointment. And maybe there's not a specialist in your area. And we're just delighted to be able to sit here and offer something that you can do from the comfort of your own home with all of your clothes on
Mm.
that involves no awkward squeezing or bracing. It is full body movements that reset all of the core, hip, low back, pelvic floor muscles through a simple movement series.
Mm.
And it doesn't just teach the therapeutic movement series. You first learn tools that help bring you relief now. So we decrease the symptoms first. You walk
Mhm.
through some self-assessments to see where you're starting from, and then you learn the movement series. And once you've got it down, it's 10 minutes a day.
Mm.
So it fits into your life as a mom. And that's Jen and I were looking for relief for ourselves first. And that is how we came upon all of this. And then we're compelled by our in-person clients to put it online.
Right.
And that's how Tighten Your Tinkler was born. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's know yourself. If you know you need in-person care, take that path. But if you are someone who'd rather do it from your own home, keep your clothes on, stay Kegel free, device free, we're honored to offer an alternative option that is a more holistic approach. It's a more functional approach. It doesn't require any extra appointments or childcare or any of that. So
Right.
we are so happy to be able to fill the gap that some women are so desperately looking for in that way.
Yes. And that's a beautiful solution, beautiful offering that you have, you and Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much teaching also. You don't have to jump into our program to benefit from all that we've put out into the world and to gain that assurance that you're not alone and to plot a path toward recovery, whatever that looks like for you. So we are really happy to be able to offer a special code for your listeners for $50 off. If you would feel called that this is a good path for you, the code is Renewed Mama, all one word, all caps. And you can hop into our signature program, which comes with support, a members only support community, as well as lifetime access, an app, all the things, and it's just one way to get better. But for those that it's an aligned choice for, it is
Mhm.
life altering because you fix all that stuff at one time. You don't even have to go to an appointment. And we've even figured out we can receive HSA and FSA cards and funds as a medical expense. So there are lots of options, and we're just proud and honored to provide that one that worked for us and that we're determined to share with the women who it can serve best.
Right, right. And Christina, tell us where we go. We go to tightenyourtinkler.com.
You got
Put in
it.
that code Renewed Mama.
Absolutely. And you can find all of our teaching everywhere. We're on Instagram at tighten.your.tinkler. We're on YouTube as Tighten
Right.
Your Tinkler, Facebook. You'll find our 5-minute quiz linked everywhere on all those
Ah,
places. And that is a
okay.
really wonderful place to start with us. So if you're like, your curiosity is piqued, you're like, I'm not sure how bad my issues are, or like how this really all connects for me, you can take our free 5-minute quiz at our Instagram or our website. And it really just helps connect the dots really quickly. So you're kind of having these little light bulb moments like, oh my, that is me, or I didn't know this was related. And then you get a score that compares you to our research study participants, which I also forgot to mention. Jen and I and our crazy behinds took on a 3-year university research study to validate our protocol before putting it online because we're
Mm.
nerds and and we didn't want to just come out with testimonials. We needed more than that to
Right.
know from the bottom of our hearts that what we were putting out there was going to work for more than just us. And so we got that data, we got it published in a peer-reviewed journal. That was a whole nother wild ride before
Nice.
we
Yeah.
even put it online as a program. But the quiz compares your score to our research study participants, and you get a report that says, yes, you're going to benefit from this, and we have the data to prove it, or no, and here's where we recommend that you receive care instead. So
Yeah, that's
it's a
fantastic.
really lovely place to start. If the back and hips is the thing that's screaming the loudest, or if it just is that pressure or tightness in the pelvis or back anywhere, we offer a decompression position you can get for free, and it's an at-home technique, no special equipment required, and it just puts gravity on your side, and it also helps reset your nervous system at the same time to take you out of fight or flight. So it is like, in just 10 minutes, just laying in this position, you're giving your body a multifaceted gift right from your own home. So love to make sure everybody has access to that. But as far as the Kegel thing, this is a really interesting question. I love the way my partner Jen has always explained this as putting into context stuff like how I said the pelvic floor is just a group of muscles, right? So you would never go to your personal trainer and say, hey, I need more upper body strength. I've got a new job where I have to lift heavy boxes from the floor to a high shelf. And your personal trainer would never say, okay, hold your arm at a 90-degree angle, squeeze your bicep and relax it. Squeeze your bicep and relax it. And that's all that they would recommend for you to do, because your arm would only get stronger in that one position.
Right.
That's what Kegels are doing for your pelvic floor. And I believe that they've been recommended for so long. I choose to believe everybody who gets into a healing and helping profession does so with the right intentions, and that it's continued to be recommended because that's all people knew. That was desperate grabs to try to help. But there is a better way, and it's much more functional. So instead, you need to strengthen a muscle through its full range of motion. You need to strengthen it through movement. We wouldn't strengthen any other muscle by squeezing it and relaxing it in one position.
Right.
So it's nonsensical in that way, but it's been done for so long because that's all anyone knew. And the hazard with Kegels is that they can actually cause over tightening, which they can help a little bit at first, sometimes for some women, and then they keep doing them and then things get worse again. And it's because we're not moving that muscle through its full range of motion. And that causes weird areas of over tightening and still areas of weakness. And it doesn't lead to that strength that translates into real life of like, now I can count on my pelvic floor when I'm sneezing and driving and bending and lifting again.
So, Christina, I would love to know, do men have to take into account their pelvic floor health and strengthening those muscles? I mean, we understand it because we're women and we've had babies, right?
Totally. And we're certainly more at risk for having pelvic floor issues because of the unique function that our pelvic floor does of pregnancy and birth that theirs doesn't. But I love that you asked this because it is an issue for men, and they actually changed the specialty in physical therapy. They used to call it women's health therapy, but now it's pelvic health or pelvic floor, because more and more men are having this issue as they're dealing with prostate surgeries that sometimes, or many times, they end up totally healed and fine. But there are cases, and it's really sad because much like women who are told by medical professionals all the time, oh, this is just the way it is. I mean, again, well-meaning medical professionals, but ill-informed in that area. This is just it. This is your life now. What do you expect? And the men are told that after prostate surgeries when they're left incontinent and impotent. And that destroys their lives as much as it does for us when we deal with these issues. And they're also given basically no hope. Some of them are referred to that specialty physical therapy, and sometimes that helps them. But we've actually just now started beginning to work with men with our program because, again, we are nerds for what we do, and we never want to promise something we haven't tested. So it seems logical that what we offer for women could also help men. We've just now started to work with a few men who are dealing with those awful side effects of the prostate procedures, and it's proving to be beneficial. So we just have a few data points now for our protocol, but it is fascinating that there might be a whole nother group of people we could really support, and whose lives we could positively impact with all this. So yeah, I love that question.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for all that you've shared. It has been so helpful. I want to keep diving into your videos too. There is one more question that I would love to ask before we say goodbye, and that is, what is one thing that you wish all moms knew? Talking mom to mom, it could be anything. What's one thing that you wish all moms knew?
I love this. I'm going to take it personal because that's the only way we can give advice, right? Something we've
Mm-hmm.
lived. And
Right.
for me, the biggest challenge and hurdle in my journey transition into becoming a mom was truly figuring out how and when to ask for and to receive help.
Mm,
I was raised in a home that very much valued independence. And I
mm,
love that because it got me through a lot and it showed me what I could do on my own and accomplish for myself. So it's a really wonderful value. However, if there's one season of life where we need to reach out, ask for, and receive help, it is that transition to motherhood and early parenting, because it threw me under the bus in ways I could have never imagined.
mm.
And that's the number one thing I wish for all moms.
Yeah, I would agree 100% for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Even to even today, I mean, my children are 14, 12, and 9, and I'm still like, okay, where can I ask for help? I think I need help in
yes.
that. Who knows what I don't know?
Yes. And that's one reason
Yeah.
I love these sorts of podcasts where we're collaborating and we're sharing what we've learned through our own
Mhm.
journeys and just trying to put it out there for somebody else who might need it. And that's what Jen and I are trying to do when it comes to pelvic floor health too.
Right. What did I tell you? Wasn't that conversation great? Tell us in the comments what you learned from our conversation. Christina and I would love to hear from you. If this episode helped you, share it with another mama you know. After hearing this episode, if you are saying, I need Christina's help, I encourage you to reach out to her and get support. The videos she and Jen have on YouTube are fantastic. They have a symptoms quiz, an improving intimacy guide, pelvic floor care quick tips, and back and hip relief guide. All of the links for these are in the show notes. Did you catch the other episodes in the Renew Your Health series? You can watch them all on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. All of the links are in the show notes. Stay tuned for more episodes on exercise, fueling your body well, food freedom, and loving the body you are in. Remember, Mama, that if you are looking for a coach, an accountability partner, another mama to talk to not feel alone in motherhood, when you're thinking, who can I ask about this? If you're looking for help to renew your thoughts, your words, and your responses, I am all yours. Go to Renewed Mama Coaching and book your first coaching session with me. Your parenting, the peace in your home, having better relationships with your children, less outbursts and temper tantrums, and a strong, positive mom mindset can be yours. Go to renewedmamacoaching.com. I am here for you. If the Renewed Mama podcast encourages you, would you leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a comment on a YouTube video? Your review, your comments help the podcast to grow so that more mamas find it and can stay renewed too. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you next time on the Renewed Mama podcast. For more resources, visit the Renewed Mama podcast, Renewed Mama Coaching, Speak Life Badges, and Austin's Kids Club.